Hi, this is Dale Rhoda, and in this short video we're going to discuss the idea of derived variables in vaccination coverage survey analysis. When we calculate coverage, we start, of course, with the variables that come with the survey. We clean the data set. We're going to talk about weighting the data set. We assign the weights to the data set. And then to calculate the indicators that represent a proportion, we generate a new variable, an indicator variable, for every respondent in the data set, and that variable, for each respondent, it takes one of three possible values. If the respondent should not be in the denominator of this indicator, if the child was not eligible for this particular calculation, then we assign a missing value to the indicator variable. If they were eligible, but they didn't have the outcome of interest that we're looking at, in particular, if they didn't receive the vaccine that we're considering with this variable, then we assign them a value of 0 for the indicator variable. And if they're eligible and they did have the outcome of interest, then we assign a value of 1. Now in these slides and throughout the course, we'll use a dot to indicate a missing value. This is the same as saying, really, that the indicator is missing if the child's not in the denominator. It's 0 if the child's in the denominator of the indicator, but they're not in the numerator. And the value is 1 if they are in the denominator and they're in the numerator. Now, some indicators are very simple, and you can just calculate the indicator variable directly from the survey variables, and you don't have to have any intermediate steps. One really simple indicator might be, did the respondent ever receive a home-based record? Well, there's a question in most surveys that very explicitly asks that, and usually there are 3 possible responses. Yes. Well, we code that clearly. We're just going to code that as a 1. No, they never received a home-based record. We're going to code that as a 0. And then we have to decide on a survey-by-survey basis or an indicator-by-indicator basis. We have to decide, what are we going to do if the response is I don't know? Different people could have different ideas about what to do here. Some people would say we should take those people out of the denominator. With the WHO indicator, we always put them in the denominator. So we say we don't have evidence that they ever received a home-based record. And if they said I don't know, then we would assign them a 0. So for this indicator, every respondent would be assigned a 1 and a 0. Everyone 12 to 23 months would be eligible for this indicator. Everyone would have a 1 or a 0. Other outcomes, other indicators require many more intermediate calculations before you get to that final 0-1 variable. One quite complicated indicator has to do with missed opportunities. There are several complicated missed opportunities indicators. So if we're trying to calculate during any of this child's vaccination visits that are recorded on their card, did they ever experience a missed opportunity? And by that we mean, did they come in and they didn't receive one or more of the doses that they were eligible for on that visit date? Well, we have to calculate a number of variables along the way before we can get to ultimately to the 0-1 indicator variable. We have to calculate for each of their visits which doses were they eligible for, and it takes several steps. So each of the variables that we calculate along the way, we call those all derived variables. Some of the derived variables turn out to be these 0-1 indicators, and some of them hold other values. But ultimately, for each indicator, we get to a variable that holds the value either missing or 0 or 1, and we usually call that an indicator variable. Indicator variables, it's also valid to say those are derived variables. When I say derived variables, I mean all of the variables that we calculate from the survey variables. So there's a very helpful resource. We've discussed it in earlier videos also. There's a document which you can download as part of your Creator project. This is in the zip file of resources for the Creator project. And it was developed for Vicky, for the vaccination coverage quality indicators, and it lists a number of indicators. It lists quite a few indicators, and for the ones that have been implemented in Vicky, it lists the very detailed steps of how to calculate the indicator variables and how to calculate each of the other derived variables along the way. In this course, you're not going to need to write programs to calculate those derived variables or indicators. We've done it for you because we just don't have time to have everyone try and fail and then try and succeed in the short time that we have together. But if you want to code up some of these WHO indicators, if you want to do the work, if you want to mimic Vicky in SPSS or in EpiInfo or in R, then this document would be super helpful to you, because it says start with these survey variables, do this step, this step, this step, calculate this intermediate variable, and here's how you calculate the derived variable. So this is a very helpful document. If you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and post them on the Survey Scholar website in the community update where you found the link to this video, and then we can have a dialogue from there. And if you're watching this video and you're not part of Survey Scholar or the course is closed, then go ahead and send us an email if you have a question or a comment. Thanks very much.